The views, ideas, and content of WellSeekers and their guests are their own opinions, and you should always seek additional professional help around any of the issues discussed here on WellSeekers.
Welcome back to WellSeekers as we start our 6-part series that we're calling the Rebuild Lab. I'm Lucia, and I'm so honored to be back doing this show. If you've listened to the show, you know that it's been a few years since we've been here and we took some time off. And I really thought, do I come back and, new show, new title? And I thought about it, and this show has meant so much. And we were, steadily just expanding our family when multiple tragedies happened in my life. And I had to take some time off to care for someone in my life who was, passing sick and ultimately passed away. And so when we were coming back, we thought, what should we talk about? And in my personal experience, I really wanted to talk about what happens when you lose something, right? And how do you rebuild when you lose such a big part of your dream? And that's not just a person. That could be a job. That could be a relationship of any type. It could be a parent. It could be not being able to have kids, right? There's so many things that we all have as part of our plan. And if you're not watching, I just made air quotes, right? These plans that become the stories that we tell ourselves. And what happens when those dreams don't go the way that we want them to because life is lifing, right? I think we create these expectations, or at least I know I have in my journey, created these expectations, and then this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And sometimes plan A happens for people or plan B. But what happens when you're on plan E or plan D, right? Like more often than not, that is what happens in life. So this series is called the Rebuild Lab. We're going to be talking to multiple experts, real experts. You know that this show is all about being real conversations, real talk, real opening up, real stories, real solutions, real experts. In a time now more than ever in the last couple of years, I'm going to throw out a wild statistic that someone told me that is actually true, but over 85% of what you're reading online, what you're hearing online, whether it's just like a meme or even a graphic or a quote unquote expert that is not an expert, right? 85% or more of the content you hear around health, mental health is false. False. So that means like most of what you're hearing is not true, and people are taking this and trying to apply it to their life. So of course, I heard the disclaimer at the top of the show, you should always seek your own professional advice. But we make sure that the people on this show are either sharing their real stories and not claiming to be experts, or they are actual experts vetted in their field. This 6-part series is really personal to me. It's either someone, the guest that we're having on, they're either people I know personally and have been part of my story, or they are people that helped me in my journey over the last few years that I followed online. So we're so excited to share these 6 episodes with us. And our first guest is a friend of the show. Her name is Dr. Danica Harris. If you are online and you do follow mental health, she's known as the empowered therapist. She has such a great following and such great content that she puts out, real content with real information, because she's incredible. We're going to have Jeff Hatch, who's a former NFL player who hit multiple rock bottoms and had to rebuild from the ground up multiple times, come on and share his story. We have someone coming to talk about relationships and how you rebuild after relationships, someone coming on to talk about their own personal story with loss and grief and how they have rebuilt after the tragic loss of their brother. We have someone coming on to talk about art therapy and how art has changed their journey. And we have Dr. John, who since recording this, because we recorded this a few months ago and are releasing it now, by the way, for everyone that I know I'm going to get someone saying, why are you in dresses in like the winter? We recorded this at the end of summer and fall. So it was still hot when this was being recorded in the Northeast. But we have Dr. John coming on, who has just absolutely exploded with good reason on social media. And that's because he is a real doctor who's going to share information on if you're rebuilding your body, how do you do that? So mind, body, spirit, that's what we're all about here at WellSeekers. My background is mental health. I'm getting my doctorate at UPenn. Shout out to my cohort, who are just phenomenal human beings at Penn. And you also know that my background is in journalism. I was a journalist. I actually started as a musician and then a journalist and then emerging mental health and media now. So this is my passion, talking about things that change lives, talking about art, talking about media and how that can change your life, sharing stories and sharing expert information. So you want to hear from real experts, real stories, and come up with real ways to feel better in mind, body, and spirit, you're in the right place. Normally, we start the show with a little bit of research, and so you know what we're talking about is real before we get to our guest. But this guest is just filled with expert information. And we're going to be talking about the process of what are the foundational building blocks of when you lose a dream, right? Again, that dream could be anything. For me, that I've lost so many dreams, I don't even know where to start. Right? Like I've lost career dreams, I've lost relationship dreams, I've lost people dreams, I've lost, kids, I've lost, or pregnancies, I've lost all sorts of things. And each time have had to rebuild. And I thought this is the interesting thing about resiliency and rebuilding. I thought that the last 2 years were going to be not easy, but I was like, oh, I've rebuilt a million times. And somehow I still managed to really stumble and not do it so gracefully, which is sometimes happens, right? And we have to forgive ourselves for. But it was in that process of stumbling so hard, I realized, like, wow, with all this knowledge and all this experience, I'm still stumbling through something that I've been through before, right? And I'd love to just reground myself in other people's experiences, other people's stories, and just the truth, to get to a place where I was a little bit more resilient in this journey. And I have to say, once I did, things started going a lot more smoothly. So I hope that what we're talking about here today helps ground you, helps provide some space and softness for your journey, for your new dream, for your rebuilding, because we're here for you and we're here for it and we're here for the rebuild. And Dr. Danica Harris is going to join us in just a second. She is phenomenal. You probably have already heard of her if you're on social media. So we're so excited to have her kick off our series here at WellSeekers. And we're back on WellSeekers with our very first guest of the season and of this brand new series after a personal hiatus, which we talked about before you came on. Dr. Danica Harris, she specializes in complex trauma, and something that is very special to me, I've integrated a lot in my own personal and professional life. A new credential, Danica, somatic practitioner. We're so honored to have you on the show and be our very first guest as we launch back into WellSeekers. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, and I mean, people probably know you as the empowered therapist. I've watched your Instagram. It's exploded. It has. You're going to be humble, I know. I'll tell everyone. Her Instagram's exploded. So if you haven't followed her, we'll put all her links below. You're going to definitely want to follow her. There's so much good stuff there. Tell us what a somatic practitioner is, because I'm always surprised at how many people don't know.
Yeah, so I am a somatic experiencing practitioner, which means I'm credentialed through the Somatic Experiencing Institute. They're the only folks that credential people for that particular designation, although lots of people are talking about somatic work these days, either somatic therapy or somatic interventions. What somatic means is in the body. So it's body-based healing. And the founder, Peter Levine of Somatic Experiencing, really talks about somatic experiencing bringing an approach where people can release some of those held trauma responses that never got to be completed when they were surviving. So healing actually requires us to release what we're holding. So it's a body-based intervention, really getting out of like the narrative. So not just like talking about trauma, but really getting to the body.
I've taken some training courses with Peter Levine, who's just incredible. Look him up. But they talk about like the top down approach versus the bottom up approach. And if you hear people talking about that, it means exactly what Danica was just saying, right? So we have to get in our bodies so that bottom up approach instead of the cognitions and trying to work that way. Can you tell us a little bit about your own journey with the holistic perspective of what we were just talking about? Because so many people think of therapy as like the brain only, right? So tell me a little bit about what rebuilding holistically means to you and somatically.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, the foundation of it for me is really getting back in touch with your complete and full self. So reintegrating. The world compartmentalizes us. Trauma compartmentalizes us. We become quite fragmented as we survive and navigate not only just day-to-day living where we have to be in our head to to just function and live in this society. But then certainly with trauma and, sometimes we'll have an experience that's like too much for our nervous system or too much for our body or too much for the context of our life. Like, well, I can't deal with this now. I'll have to deal with it later. And all of that leads to this compartmentalization and fragmentation. Well, if we're talking about getting back in connection with ourselves, we have to go towards the body. We have to rebuild there. We're not going to rebuild in our brain. Like, we can't outthink the things we've experienced. We can't outthink our trauma responses. We can't outthink of our emotions. And so to me, like that rebuilding really looks like reintegrating and becoming more of yourself and returning to yourself as if you are your one true home.
So if we had an example of someone that maybe did go through some sort of complex trauma, which there are so many varied complex traumas, and they know that I'm going to just call it what and I don't know if you refer to it, but like that sort of top down approach, that cognitive approach where you're just in your brain, and they know that that's not what they need. Where does someone start when they're like, I need to rebuild? I know that this is something in my whole holistic body, not just cognitions. Where do we start, Danica?
Well, it's interesting is because I'm gonna give you an answer, but it's not the answer people want.
Okay, that's good. I like this.
Yeah, out of my experience where I actually think people need to start. What typically happens is, someone will have that sort of therapy, and I mean, and this is why I have a group therapy practice where this is one of our greatest specializations. Is because we're therapists who utilize this bottom-up approach. And what'll happen is someone has had therapy elsewhere and they will come to us and just say, "What I've been doing is not working. I wanna try something different." And people are really savvy now around, like, different therapy techniques, like, so somatic experiencing, IFS, EMDR, those bottom-up approaches. People are very knowledgeable about them, which I think is great because then people have autonomy in their healing. So I think what people typically do is they seek out practitioner support, which is a fantastic thing to do. But let's say therapy isn't accessible to you or that's not a place you wanna start, like, the actual place any of us could start right now today would be being nice to ourselves, being gentle with ourselves, validating that what we experienced was real and true, stopping the comparison game of like, "Oh, other people had it worse," you know? So, the one place we need to start is gentleness, and that's a really hard sell to most of us.
Can we talk about this actually? Because I mean, I use the word like self-compassion with gentleness, and I was actually just talking to somebody about their healing journey and saying, because they were like, "No, I need to get serious. I need to take this serious. I need to take my trauma serious," right? And I actually said to them, "Well, I think the first step is self-compassion," right? And their response was, which is typical, like, "No, that's just gonna, like, make everything worse if I'm kind to myself. I need to get really hard on myself and get serious about this." When someone comes in with that attitude or lens, how do you work with them and encourage them towards self-compassion?
Yeah, I start by just saying, like, if that approach you're talking about was gonna work, it would've worked already, especially for complex trauma survivors. The world's been hard enough on us. Being harder isn't going to be the answer. It's like, well, we've already tried it that way. Why don't we try it this other way? Why don't we try some softness? And, it's such a protective strategy for people to be so self-critical because it's like, well, I can't soften to me because I have to be ready to come into action and just like plow through my life independent of how I'm feeling. I can't allow the grief to swallow me whole. I have to keep moving. And so like I get it. It's like that tough outer shell, that like I tough love myself. It's like love isn't actually meant to be tough, but we picked that up somewhere along the way that like in order for me to love myself, I have to be like uber accountable and really harsh. And like, you can be loving and accountable. Like, we don't need to couple accountability with harshness. People can love themselves and still uphold commitments to themselves and honor themselves and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would even argue that people are more authentic when they honor that softness, right? And they show it more authentically and more genuinely and more fully when we come in from that approach as opposed to like, I just need to get through this. My experience, like disassociation, right? Like just things that sort of detach us instead of help us lean in to where we want to be.
Right, because it's, like, such a guarded way to be, right? So, like, if we're tough with ourselves, we're, like, it's an attempt to protect ourselves from more bad things happening. But and that might work some of the time, I'm not gonna ever tell someone, "Just throw your coping strategy away." Whether it's working for you or not, it was developed like, it was a well-earned coping strategy, right? So, it's like, let's honor that that's real and true, and also, um, let's try on something different to see if we can get an even different outcome here, like, you don't have to protect yourself from the world in all instances all the time. Maybe you had to when you were young, but that like guardedness, it actually keeps out connection. It keeps out like some of the most meaningful relationships of your life. It keeps out that like opportunity for softness and ease. So when we're super guarded like that, we have to also think about, well, what am I missing out on by being this way?
And you may not know this, but what happens in our bodies when we are soft, when we start with that foundation of gentleness and then go from there?
So I think about it, I can start like with myself. I mean, part of the reason I appreciate somatic work so much is because I feel like it worked well for me. One of the first things I noticed when I started treating my body differently, I started talking to myself differently, I started being gentler. I started noticing like some of the physiological responses first. Like I wasn't as tense in my body. I wasn't like clenching my jaw as much as I had been. I wasn't having as many headaches. I noticed that, when I would eat, like, my stomach didn't feel as upset, and so I was someone who, like, lived with a lot of tension in my body and for a very long time, like many complex trauma survivors do, and it was like, as I started being nicer to myself, it was like, "Oh, my physiology is changing a little bit here." And I think that that's something that people can expect. It's like, or even like listening to yourself, right? Like one of the things that comes up with so many clients that I'll sit with is like they won't have any idea when they're hungry. They won't have any idea when they're thirsty. They won't rest when they're tired. They don't know when to go to the bathroom. And it's like I'll start asking people these questions and it most of the time it's like, "Oh, no, I don't know." Like I just I do this on a pattern, but I don't necessarily have a felt sense, right? And so I think being kind and gentle with your body invites your body to start communicating with you again. So then you do begin to know, like, oh, this is what a hunger pang feels like. Oh, this is a sensation I feel in my mouth when I'm thirsty. That then increases this like reciprocal relationship someone can have with their body. So the nicer you are to your body, the more your body trusts you and will send you messages and cues. And to me, like that's what this is all about. Like that's how the softening ends up like taking residence in your body.
Yeah, and I don't know if this resonates for you, but it's almost like you're creating safety for yourself because it was so unsafe before, right? And I that's how I equate it to people it's that I work with and personally, right? Is that with complex trauma, it's so often our bodies feel unsafe and our nervous system is like constantly, I always say it's like an antenna, right? It's like scanning for like the next trauma, right? And so when you soften, it's allowing your body to say it's okay and your nervous system to stand down, right? Like I don't need you as much. Like things are okay, I'm okay, we're okay, this is gonna be right. Like all those sort of like the leaning into the softness allows my nervous system to say it's okay. We're gonna be
Yeah.
okay here, right? Is that in line with how you approach things?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you're saying that so well. Like when we experience trauma or anything that's too much or too fast for our nervous system, we become oriented to threat. So we're literally looking for danger to exist everywhere. And if you're looking for something very specific, you're likely to find the thing you're looking for. And most of us aren't necessarily oriented to like the mundane, the benign, or even the positive. So one of the things that I would help someone do in somatic work, and this is something that takes a little bit more time, is beginning to help them notice the like glimmers, the neutral or north of neutral experiences of life. Like, for me, one of the things that I started doing is like noticing like landscaping and plants and the greenery and stuff like that, because that felt like a safe place to experiment. Like, okay, well, I'm not going to look for safety in other humans yet. That's a tall ask. But I'm going to start by just like, can I notice flowers? And can I notice the varying colors in the flowers? And can I notice which ones I feel drawn to over others? And can I just even be curious about, why am I more drawn to this flower than this flower? And like look at all this space I'm then creating inside of me to be interested and curious. So now I'm like not just oriented to threat, I'm now oriented to like beautiful, anything from like beautiful, joyful, exciting to like neutral things. And ideally, we are oriented to all of that. Being oriented to our real life is to be oriented to the vast array of experiences human beings can have, both internal and external.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I is so beautiful about what you just said, Danica, is I think when people have complex trauma, and again, I'm going to speak professionally and personally, right? It's you, people are scary sometimes. So asking someone to lean in and be like, oh, no, that person's not a threat. It's like, no, no, they are, right? Like that's a hard ask. But taking time and just saying, right, like, can you see that flower, like you said, right? Or something in nature or an animal in your life, right? Like anything that we know naturally maybe is a little easier for people that do have complex trauma. If somebody is not quite sure, because that's one thing. I mean, I think the word somatic is becoming more mainstream, which I absolutely love. But I am still, I think I said this earlier, I'm surprised how many people still don't know what that means, right? I'm gonna do a double barrel question, which is a no in this industry, I know, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I know you can handle it. But one, how would you describe somatic therapy, right? Like just in your own words. And two, if someone isn't sure that it's for them, what are some signs that it may be for them?
If someone's like wanting to understand somatic therapy or somatic intervention, what I would say is we're going to attend to your body and not simply your brain. Like, there's definitely a much more fancy and nuanced definition, but, like, that's what I would say to someone is, like, the trauma occurred within your body, and so we have to, in order to heal, we have to get in touch with your body. Helping someone understand, "Is this for you?" I would I'm gonna go as far as to say somatic work could be for everyone, and I would probably say that to someone who reached out, and what I would say is the somatic work that you need may be very different than the somatic work I need, and that's the beautiful thing about really any of these bottom-up modalities is that they are so highly customizable and they're not, manualized, which is what the cognitive interventions tend to be much more manualized, so they're not specific to the individual person, their context, their nervous system. So the bottom up approaches allow us to work with what is, meaning what is in front of me, what is inside this person's body, what is coming up in this exact moment, what does this person need. So it's highly able, but we're really able to tailor it. And so I just say like, let's just see what your body tells us.
When you say body, could we even sort of narrow that in to like nervous system? Yeah.
Yeah, nervous system, but we're also looking at like what sensations or call those sometimes messengers or cues that come from the body. Also feelings. A lot of us like believe we're in touch with our feelings and really like we think about our feelings, we don't feel them. So like I might ask someone, this is a telltale for me. I might ask someone like, "How are you feeling today?" Or just something like, "Well, I think I'm feeling okay." It's like, I think, and then I'm feeling okay. Okay is not an emotion. So I want to help someone understand, like, if they were to say sad, how do you know you feel sad? And what I'm wanting to help them create language around and a relationship around is knowing that their feeling exists based on like what's happening internally, not a thought that exists. Like, oh, well, this bad thing happens, so I should feel sad, which is really different than independent of what happened. That's the context, that's the cognition. But, like, right here, right now, I can notice sadness in my body because I notice this, like, feeling in my stomach or this, like, tiredness in my eyes or, what have you. So, we're trying to, like, build this vocabulary around, like, how do things actually feel in your body? And then, like, what does your nervous system need? I mean, I think that, to me, that's really like, those 2 things are, foundations of this work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think so many people think that thinking is the way to change some mental health challenges as opposed to right? That bottom up approach that can help with the cognitions not feel so intense, right? Like there is validity to that bottom up and then addressing the top down. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know in my own work, like sometimes people can hop in bottom up, sometimes people need a little top down approach, right? And just to iterate what that means for people listening, it's like sometimes people need to work through some cognitions and then they can go and start addressing things, and then vice versa. Sometimes they just need their nervous system or those sensations to be identified, and then they can hop into more cognitive work. Do you feel like it's a mix when people are rebuilding?
Absolutely, yeah, and, what I would say is, like, I'm never throwing cognitions out the window, I'm just setting them to the side. I'm just, like, not allowing those to be front and center, right? Because 'Cause they're already front and center the minute someone comes into my office. So what we're trying to do is we're just trying to create space for more, not, like, remove the cognition. But I agree with you, like, people need different entry points. So, like, while I do believe every one of us benefits from somatic work, that can't always be the starting point.
If someone comes in with a really dysregulated nervous system or they're having a hard time identifying those sensations, what do you do? Is there a starting point for rebuilding that you have strategies or things that you work with people on?
Yeah, a lot of complex trauma survivors are highly dysregulated or they live in this like chronically activated state or like sympathetic dominance. So like the nervous system has a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is that like fight, flight, freeze, high activation that people experience. So what I'm trying to do is, validate first and foremost. That'd be my first step. Like I'm gonna validate like whatever you're feeling, like sense in the context of what you've experienced and then what I would want to do, because the body is already experiencing so much, the body's kind of in overload, I might try, like, external orienting. Like, I do this with clients sometimes in my office. Can you look around my office and find something that is neutral or north of neutral to you? Something you perceive or experience as neutral or north of neutral. And I'll usually do it with them. Like, one of the things, like, I'm just, like, looking at my desk around me right now.
Yeah, can we do
I've
it
got
now? Can we do one
Yeah,
now? I would love to.
so, like, I just glanced around and I was looking for something neutral or north of neutral, and I found a north of neutral. I've got this little, like,
Oh,
desk
is that your
ornament.
dog?
Well, this is, like, my soul dog who died a couple of years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Like, very good friend, had this made for me before he died, and, I mean, this dog was just, like, the love of my life, and I see this little but, it's like I can hold both, like, I can even as I'm telling you this, it's like, I still view this as a north of neutral thing because while I carry grief related to his passing, I'm also highly connected to him, and so I see this little thing and it brings up these, like, positive, like, "Oh, he's still here." I can still look at him. And so here's this thing that I'm gonna call a resource, like seeing Hippo, that's the dog's name, seeing this little, desk ornament of Hippo brings me happiness. It brings me connection. So he feels like a resource to me because then in my memory, it's like I have all these positive stories and experiences related to him. So the whole reason we're doing this external orienting is to help people build their resources.
If someone is in their space right now, can you walk us together through it?
Yeah. So what I would tell people to do is, try not to like fixate on any one thing. You wanting to take in your space. So like I'm sitting in my office. So you could do this at home. You could do this out in the world if you're listening, like even on a walk. You wanna start by taking in the environment around you, and not in the way that we normally do, which is where we just, like, walk into a place and don't actually look at anything. We just, like, take the whole room in as, like, one big thing. But I would say, like, you start glancing. So, like, right now, I'm, like, look my computer's, right in front of me, and I'm looking to both sides, and I'm really noticing, the things that are sitting next to my computer, and I'm noticing that there's different colors of Post-its and different pens and different markers, and that's all right here, and then if I keep glancing, over here, and it was some paperwork, and, this way I notice a lamp, and the back here is a printer, and I'm taking the time to really notice, meaning I am, like, taking it in, and I'm attending to it, and I'm doing it with the intention of finding something and, neutral is a great place to start. People don't have to go north of neutral, sometimes that's too much. Just something that's neutral, something that, like, doesn't elicit any highly activating thoughts or feelings or memories. And then once the person feels like they've landed on something, I would say, "Tell me about it."
Can I tell you about mine?
Yeah.
I have but this may not be this is a little north of neutral, I think, but my Aviator Nation hat, which is, like, my favorite hat.
Okay. What makes it your favorite hat?
It's just such a sunny company. They have a lot of rainbows and, it just when I put it on because it's such a bright, happy hat,
What color is it?
it's like an electric blue, and then it has, like, a yellow and red and orange on it.
Okay. So it's colorful and it's bright. So you're not only having a positive experience by looking at the hat, but also thinking about the company?
Yeah, it's just a really sunshiny company too.
Yeah.
Shout out
Yeah.
to Aviator Nation.
Well, what's great about what you picked, and this is a fantastic example, is not only are you like having memories of this company, so internal positive resource memories, positive memories. Plus, there's something about the color that's drawing you in, and it's bright. And you use electric to describe the blue, and so you're vivifying the experience a little bit. And even as you're telling me, it's like you're smiling, your face is, like, a little bit more pink. So, like, I can see that you are embodying a positive experience as you look at this thing. So this hat actually is a resource for you. So having it in a space where you can see it and it brings up positive internal experiences is an ideal thing. And, like, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people notice in any room you're in any space you're in, can you find the things that are resourcing here?
Beautiful. And then once we find them, how do we build from there?
So you continue to be on the lookout for them. So this is how we break that orientation to threat. We continue to take in all of the world around us. And ideally, that's what we'll do. Trauma narrows our vision. We become very fixed, right? Because again, we're looking, is this dangerous or am I okay? But I want someone to think more than is this dangerous or am I okay? I want someone to say, like have all the differentiation, like, "Oh, I feel internally a little anxious, but I'm okay." Right? Because then we're breaking that cycle. So we continue to look for neutral and north of neutral experiences or stimuli everywhere we go. Not only are those glimmers for the day, but again, they're also building our capacity internally, like, "Oh, I'm taking in more of the world." I think we also then, like, this process fine tunes our awareness to things that are not for us. And so rather than seeing danger everywhere, I want someone to be able to, like, trust their gut. And one of the ways we learn to trust our gut is by building out these resources. Like, so if I can tell what's good, what's north of neutral, what's neutral, I'm also going to be a better judge or a better evaluator of where danger exists.
Like real danger.
Yeah, but real danger. Yeah, because and this is the thing, it's like when we are oriented to threat or when we're oriented to danger, we have a really hard time telling the difference between perceived and real threat and threat that exists inside of us, meaning it's coming from a past experience, or threat that exists like right here, right now in this moment. And we actually are better able to differentiate all of that if we can do it with the good stuff. And so that's really where I want to focus. And that's why these top-down approaches aren't really that successful for very many people because they teach you to either rework or reattune to the horrible things, the worst things of your life. And these bottom up approaches really begin to create more space for the good and the neutral of life, which got kicked out the window when trauma happened.
Absolutely. If someone, Danica, is listening and they have complex trauma, and maybe we should differentiate that. What is the difference between complex trauma and trauma?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna,
Realistically.
this is my wheelhouse, so this is you're getting my perspective.
Yes, which
What
is
I'm
what
gonna
we
say
want.
is yeah, I'm gonna say most trauma is actually complex in nature. When I think of like trauma as it's defined, like in the DSM, like associated with PTSD, we're really talking about single incident trauma. Um, so, like if someone's in a car accident, that is certainly traumatic and it may not be complex. It still could be, but it may not be. It might be that like the trigger becomes anytime you're driving a car or anytime you're around a car. It's like more simplistic in its understanding. Like, the triggers are associated with the thing that happened. With complex trauma, it's trauma that's occurring in the context of our everyday life, so it's much more complex. The triggers are harder to identify and could be varied, it could be anything all the time. It's often highly relational, And it's often prolonged exposure to trauma across an extended period of time. I also want to add to that complex trauma, especially for those that experienced it in childhood, could also be about what we're not getting. So it's not simply something awful happened. It could be the absence of your basic needs being met, something like emotional neglect.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not that something just happened to you, it also maybe didn't happen to you, right? Like attunement from parents, love from caregiver, right? So if someone listening right now is struggling, right, and they've tried therapy, maybe they haven't, and they just feel hopeless, because I have heard that recently from multiple people with complex trauma. Like, where do I go? What do I even do? Right? That our system is frustrating, which could be a whole other conversation we could have, which I don't know how you feel about it, but our healthcare system is so frustrating sometimes for people entering or trying to get help. So if someone is feeling lost and they want to rebuild from whatever is challenging them, what's a starting point? What's some words of encouragement or maybe your professional or personal experience around where do we start?
We start by honoring what's real and true. So just the fact that like I've been through some stuff and I don't want to live the way I've always lived, or things don't have to be the way they've always been. And just really acknowledging like our desire for change, even when we're terrified of it. Like that right there, I think is like a beautiful start to somatic work. Like we're all capable of change. It's whether or not we believe that we are, and it's whether or not we feel safe enough to do it. And so just having the desire to change, but also being afraid of change, that tells me right there you've got some awareness of your body because you're noticing, like, I have a want and simultaneously a fear. Like, what a wonderful foundation to get us started on somatic work. And I think that that's it. It's like sometimes we want to overthink healing because again, trauma is highly complex, right? And so there's this belief that healing also has to be complex. And I think I even believed at some point that healing needed to be complex, but I actually think healing is like the most ordinary thing we can do. We just like overthink it and overcomplicate it because it's not what's natural. It's not what our society does. It's not how people tend to engage with themselves or others. And so I just think like starting with the foundation of like, I believe myself, I allow anything that is existing inside of me to exist without judgment, and I will seek support that aligns with that perspective. So this is where I would say to someone like, you could certainly seek out therapy. You could look on the Somatic Experiencing International website, traumahealing.org, I believe. You could look on social media for SEPs or somatic practitioners or people doing other bottom up therapies, EMDR, stuff like that. And just really start to see like what messaging speaks to me and what about it speaks to me. And then I think, from there you can make decision around do you seek professional help around these things or is it just like you're self-learning, you're practicing on your own?
Last question. Did you see the study that 85 to 90% of content online around mental health is not factually based?
Well, that's disturbing. No, I haven't seen that, but
Totally disturbing, which is one of the reasons I'm so excited to be back and to talk to people like you because again, we're gonna put all of her social links on there, but you're factually based, right? You know what you're talking about. You are actually an expert, whether you wanna sort of humbly show it, you are an incredible expert. So I've been asking experts that are coming on that have right the backing. What's one new technology? Maybe it's an app, maybe it's something else that you're loving that's supporting your own mental emotional well-being. And what's one sort of old school thing? For me, like naps right now are a big I'm taking like 15-20 minute naps. Um, if you have them. If you don't, I know that it could be a tough question, but I'd love to know your wellness rituals right now.
well, I'll start with the old school thing because that's the easiest one that comes to mind. To me, it's all about like, am I hydrating? Am I eating? Am I going to the bathroom when I need to go? And am I resting? So, like, am I listening to when I'm tired? So to me, that is like gold. Like you wanna work towards your healing. Are you eating? Are you drinking water? Are you going to the bathroom? And are you resting? So I would say those are the things for me. And I know that's 4 different things. Someone could definitely choose one of them and just start there. If you're not drinking your water, drink your water. If you're not eating your meals, eat your meals. Like, And even at first, if you're not like, if you say like, "Oh, I don't have hunger cues," or whatever, okay, well, set a timer on your phone. Like, let's start teaching your body around the time you want to eat, or whatever, right? So I think that's my old school thing. You know, I'm not surprised by this statistic because I think whenever, especially like something becomes popular, a term becomes popular, everybody takes it and they put their own put their own spin on it. So it's not surprising to me. In terms of resources, I think I mean, I don't mean to come on here and be like an advocate for the Somatic Experiencing International, but I feel like I am. They have great trainings that people can utilize. Also, the Embody Lab, they're doing really great trainings. And some of these trainings are, I think, quite affordable, so accessibly priced, and they're not all for therapists and mental health practitioners. They have some that are open to anybody that could take them. And then you're really going to the source. You're going to the people who like created these theories and foundations. They're training people in them. I think that would be a really good place to start, or even like any of Peter Levine's books, like Healing Trauma or Waking the Tiger. Those are both great resources too.
You just gave us a lot, Micah, a lot. So thank you. That's a great answer. Um, if people want to find you, we're going to have your links, but tell us your preferred place.
Well, you can definitely find me on Instagram. I'm also on Threads and Facebook and Pinterest and some of those places at The Empowered Therapist. And then I co-own a group therapy practice in the Dallas area, although we see clients across 40 different US states. And that is Empowered Healing Dallas. And then I also have a somatic coaching business. We do retreats, we do trainings, we do all sorts of different things and that's theempoweredtherapist.com.
Dr. Danica Harris, thanks so much for taking the time.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back on WellSeekers. Welcome back to WellSeekers. Thank you so much again to Dr. Danica Harris for being on the show. We're going to have all her socials again so you can follow her. She's just an incredible human as well as a friend and a friend of the show. So thank you, Dr. Danica Harris, for being with us. Before we let you go, if you watch the show, you know that we always end with tools, things that you can take away and have it be a part of your life and your journey. And one is usually more tech-based, and then the other is something that you can do without technology. I always say old school because it feels like that, although sometimes I wish we just all lived old school. But um, so the first tool in the spirit of somatics is this is a machine. A good friend gave it to me when I was going through something, and it's called the Now. I'll put a link. Again, not endorsed. It's just something I really like. I don't know if I turn it on if it's going to work because it has a counterpart. It's 2 speakers. If you hear that. I want to zone out. We won't do the whole thing, but that's just a little taste. And it's a 3-minute sound bath, essentially. But the frequency is supposed to give the same effects that 60 minutes of yoga will do. So I used to start my day with this every like 3 minutes of this every day. And then I would go into the tool that I'm going to give you that's not tech based, which is breath work, which we'll talk about in a second. And when I started my days like that, my nervous system throughout the day, I would pause when agitated, all the things that make life peaceful and make life more of an experience and not a reaction, right? When my nervous system is raw, life can be a reaction more than just me living. This is one of the tools that I've now religiously put back in my life. So every morning I'll start with this and then I'll do my breath work. Um, and sometimes that morning is at 12 p.m. when I have time, if I have to get up, early. But I try it first thing in the morning just because it recalibrates my nervous system. So if you're looking for if maybe you only have 3 minutes, I didn't buy these. They are a little pricey for sure. They were a gift, like I mentioned, but I still will put the link. Sometimes you can just use I also have like a $10 sound tool that I use as well. This just is supposed to give the same effects as 60 minutes of yoga on your nervous system. I find that to be true as someone who's certified in yoga and does yoga. This is absolutely a go-to for me. The second thing is breath work. Shout out to Sam Whiting. I'm going to tag him in this, but he led a breathwork workshop at Kripalu, which is in Western Mass, that I went to years ago. And that was life changing for me, not only because Sam is life changing and you all should follow Sam because he is amazing. But because the work that he taught me is something that I carried with me. And then I went and got certified in Wim Hof breathing. And actually, I'm leading a workshop in like a month. So I'll make sure to give details about that. But Wim Hof breathing essentially does very similar things that this tool is trying to accomplish. It's recalibrating your nervous system. It's helping you switch more easily back and forth between sympathetic, parasympathetic. So when you do get escalated, when you do feel like that raw nerve is what I call it, and you're starting to scan for threat, for me, my reaction can be like, you know, I was about to say popping like getting angry, right? Like just very quickly. I don't know if it's Italian or just the way my nervous system was calibrated, but it is truly when I do breath work, it recalibrates my nervous system and I feel like a different person. I feel like a person living in an experience rather than just constantly reacting. I don't know if that resonates with anyone, but for me, that has been a life changing experience. So, I'm also gonna put information, on Wim Hof breathing, and if people are interested, I may even do an online Wim Hof breathwork session, so feel free to DM me if you have any interest in that. Dr. Danica Harris, thank you so much for being a part of this series as we learn how to rebuild our mind, our body, our spirits, and share our story in community. Because honestly, as time goes on, the most valuable thing to me is community, and the people that I share life with. So you are those people. So thank you to everyone who's watching or listening. Thank you to Jen, my producer, to Chris, who's editing this. Truly, this wouldn't be possible without you. And we're just so grateful, as you know, say it at the end of every show. I'm going to say it again. Time is the greatest asset we have. Thank you for spending your time with us. Thank you for being a part of the WellSeekers family. And thank you for letting us be a part of your family. From all of us here at WellSeekers, we'll see you next time.
What's on your mind? Email us at hello@wellseekers.com.